Finally, Jason and Stan in the content room. We're going to send this out to all the Yacht Habit brokers. It's been a long time coming. So it's been a long time coming, but we're finally in the content room, done with the boat show, here to have a conversation. It's good to see you, Stan.
Good to see you, Jason. Thanks for invitation.
Sure.
And glad to join your team.
Listen, I'm super glad to have you on the team, and I think people are going to be pleasantly surprised at what kind of asset that you are to the team. You have a great background. I don't think very many people know, but you have a pretty technical background. You design boats, is that right?
Yeah, I designed a couple boats and I did a little bit fundraising, worked for a bigger brand, learned back office and general industry standards, so to speak. So,
What did you think of designing a boat? What was that process like?
I think it's the hardest of what you can start with,
Yeah.
being in the industry. Yeah, you always look for either you are expressing your passion or you're making money.
Yeah.
So you have to choose one or the other, because one is the spending route and the other is the earning route.
Yeah.
At least on the first stages. Once you get into the boating industry and you see how everything works, then you basically can combine them and make your passion profitable.
I see. Yeah, I didn't think about it in that way. You know, I've just been sales and service. That's it.
Yeah.
So I've helped people with their design, but I've never sat down and actually designed a boat from start to finish.
There are different concepts, right? If you are looking to design a fiberglass boat with a smaller size, then it's probably not really worth it unless you're making a new company or a new brand, right? And that requires a lot of investments, so you have to be prepared for that. But if you want to design a custom boat that is more reasonable as a single production, production boat or yacht, then it makes sense to find a good client and to design a boat for him, like a yacht or something bigger.
Yeah.
That makes profitable sense.
I mean, we have, thanks to some relationships with our broker, Shauna, we have a relationship with Franco Nessi in Italy where we can design out 60 meter, 70 meter, 80 meter. But when I visit shipyards and I see all the craziness that's going on, even from something as small as, let's say, a Nortec or CV, going into their plants and then moving up and going into a Ferretti plant. And then you've got like a CRN plant, and then you have a Lursen or a Fed ship, which is just a different level of technical engineering and forethought. One time, it was really crazy. I was talking to Peter Lursen. So we're sitting there with a client. I was a little bit nervous because it was the first time that I sat down discussing boats of that, of that dollar amount. And I asked him, I said, let me just because I'm a crazy person, what percentages of your boats are on time for whatever you promised the client? And he looked at me, he's like, what do you mean? I was like, well, what's your ratio for on-time deliveries? He was just like, I don't understand. I was like, well, are you ever late? He's like, no. I was like, your boats are never late. He goes, we don't even start until we know when we're going to finish.
Wow.
And I
This
said,
is crazy. That's impossible. I was always under the impression that it was always late.
Always late. Every boat I've ever been involved in is not only late, but it's uncomfortably late. And he's like, we've never been late. Now, somebody may come back and say, that's not true, my Lursen was late. But it was convincing. I mean, he was like, when you sit down to build a Lursen, down to the screws, everything is planned in advance, ordered in advance, ready and waiting. He's like, that's part of what makes a Lursen, is that you come in with that kind of confidence that you're going to get the product that you want for the amount that you want, or the amount that you agreed to, in the time that you agreed to, in the quality and condition that you agree to. He's like, that's why, first of all, we don't build 50-meter boats, because that's what I was trying to build. He's like, we're not going to build you a 50-meter boat. That's too small. He's like, you're going to have to go up to 750 gross tons, 1,000 gross tons, 1,600 gross tons, and I felt very small at that moment. I thought it was a big shot coming in there with a 50-meter, and he was like, no, that's not a big boat for us. That's too small.
Yeah, if you're in the industry for a while and you know you have that historical transactions, that amount of historical transactions that now make you confident to forecast what's going to be your project timeline. And I worked with a lot of vendors, you know, in construction, in supply chain, warehousing. You know, one of the best vendors would just be resistant to the client push of the timelines. So they say like, hey, you're saying, you know, I need the warehouse. I need to build like a mezzanine. How much it's gonna take? And they say like, oh, it's gonna be like 7 months. And you're like, no, I need to do it like in 5 months. And I do da 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 da. And you know, some vendors that are not quite responsible, they tend to lay over and, you know, bend and offer a client like, okay,
Right.
by thinking that they're gonna win the client then. And that typically what happens is, yes, they win the client, but then the client becomes super unhappy.
At the end.
Right?
When their boat's late.
But one of my best vendors were always super resistant to my push, and I had to report deadlines to my management to be higher than expected, and they were upset first, but they were always on time and even faster because they just maintained that resistance in the timeline.
I mean, I think that the more successful projects that I've been involved in is exactly that, is setting the expectation from the very beginning. But I tell clients constantly, I'm like, do not plan a vacation on your new boat directly after the delivery date, the promised delivery date of your new boat. Don't book flights, don't book marinas, don't fly your family and friends in for a christening that may or may not take place on that date. Like, don't do that to yourself. And then you know what they do? They do it anyway. They do it anyway.
There's another problem when customer buys the boat in Florida. He plans to sail the boat up north to get rid of the higher insurance rates because of the hurricane area, right?
Yeah.
So that is another thing that sometimes client gets the boat delivered, and for some reason, whatever reason, you cannot release him far because you're either finishing the PDIs or you have certain things to polish and square away, right? But he cannot stay in the area because of the insurance costs.
Yeah.
And he has to drive up north with like a half-lagged boat, and basically, you know, to escape the costs.
Yeah. I mean, I think sometimes we fall short as salespeople in really in being firm with a client. You don't want to be firm with them. They're the boss, but it's like, sir, ma'am, you're paying me not to lie to you. You're literally paying me to be the one person to tell you the truth. This boat's not ready. I'm sorry. I sold it to you, but I wasn't there laying the fiberglass and spraying the gel and putting the toaster oven in. I wasn't doing that, but I'm reporting back to you, this boat isn't going to be ready, and it's not ready for you to take. There's been boats, honest to God, where the dealer called me, is like, where's the boat? And I'm like, we're on the boat. Yeah. And the dealer's like, we didn't do the PDI. We have to break in all these different pieces of equipment. What is going on? I'm like, we took the boat. The client didn't care. He's like, we haven't even shown the client how everything works. I said, the client loaded up his friends and we took the boat. We'll bring it back in a week, but we're on the boat.
That's crazy. In within some vendors, it's not even possible. The dealer will not do that.
We just took it. Yeah. We just literally went there and put stuff on the boat and drove off in the boat. He had paid for it. He had signed for it, but they don't. Oftentimes, people don't understand what a PDI is. They don't understand, because think about it.
What is the PDI?
It's the purchase and delivery, like the inspection that's going through everything, every single system. So you may have like a seacock that's closed, that's supposed to be running salt water through whatever. It could be your engine generator, it could be stabilizers, it could be your AC system, it could be anything. There could be one that's open that's not supposed to be open. There could be wires that aren't connected yet. There could be, so like the techs will come in and just have like an 80 an 80 item checklist. They'll just be going down and checking it and then showing the captain or showing the owner, okay, look, well, if the boat gets hot, this, that, and the other. These bow thrusters and stern thrusters you mentioned earlier, hey, these are electric. These aren't hydraulic. You can't just lay on them and just move your boat around all afternoon on the thrusters. You're going to either cook one, and it's going to fail, pop a breaker, it's going to get too hot and fail, and you're not going to be able to maneuver. It can be anything. But like, I love my customers, and I am always close with them, as close as I can be, but they're experts in their industry, right? So if they manufacture steel, they are experts in steel. If they are authors, or if they are producer, or if they are musician, or if they are whatever it is, they're a complete expert in that field.
Yeah, but sometimes vendors are taking advantage of the PDI timeline, time, right? And they cover up certain manufacturer defects.
They can do that, but
or even like damages that happen during the transportation or
listen,
whatever.
they can do all that. But again, the customers are experts in the field that made them wealthy. My customers always think that that knowledge transfers to boats. So I'm an expert in construction of homes, therefore I'm an expert in construction in boats. I'm an expert in steel manufacturing, therefore I'm an expert in boats. And I'm like, oh man, we're gonna have a long day. No, a boat is a floating battery. It has 6, 8 different kinds of metals, all right next to each other, floating in salt water. It's a battery. So if you're not careful what you're doing in the boat, it's not your home. It's not where you just turn off all the spigots, around the outside of your house and go on vacation. It's not like that.
It's like a horse.
It's like an angry horse.
Can you leave a horse in a shed and leave for the vacation? No, it's gonna die.
It's like a horse. It's like a horse, a porcupine, and a baby. You can't leave the 3 of those things in a shed and go out of town. You're going to come back and see chaos. But you're going to explain to a customer you're buying a chaotic product. That's a challenge. They're not thinking about that. They're thinking about, like these pictures, they're thinking about turquoise blue waters. They're thinking about, as you mentioned before, dolphins behind the boat. They're thinking about their favorite drink or their favorite
expectations and reality.
And and don't kill the messenger. And we're always getting killed as messengers. But I think I'd rather get killed as a messenger than not bring the message.
And the problem is that if the client is super pissed off, he's not pissed off on the brand, he's pissed off on the boating industry.
He's pissed off on the whole experience.
Yeah, so he's probably not gonna be back in the industry with any vendor. So
that's an issue.
It's a small world that we have to take care of each other and make sure that we deliver the best customer experience ever.
True. And sometimes, look, go sell a Riva. You're like, hey, can I have this in green? They're like, no. Can I move this fridge over to here? Before you even finish, they're like, no, you cannot. Can I have a different wood package? No. These are bookend matched pieces of wood. No. But I want to get another stairwell here. No. They're just like, no. Unless you go buy a 50 meter or 45 meter or something like that. But you go get a 44 Riva Rama. This is the mahogany. This is the teak. Here's the cushions we picked out. This is what you're getting. I understand now. Like, I understand why they're like, we can guarantee you that this is beautiful, that this is functional, and this is what it's supposed to be. If you change it, first of all, we're not going to do it because we can't guarantee what you're talking about. And second of all, we've been doing it long enough that that's the deal. That's what you're going to get. But if you go get a custom line or you go get, as you mentioned, go get a fully custom boat, yeah, of course you can do whatever you want. But you should know what you're doing.
What's your worst experience with a client?
I had a client who's a good dude. He's a good guy. But he's a difficult negotiator, and he cannot visualize. Super rich guy, has everything in the world, every kind of toy imaginable, but he can't imagine something from a drawing. He has to physically see it. And he planned his vacation, of course, around the delivery of his boat. and his boat was late. And none of us realized, but when he was in the shipyard, he put a tracker inside of his boat. This is long before most people
Wow.
had trackers. He put basically a low jack inside of his boat, and he would be calling me and saying, you have 6 more hours to unload this boat. If this boat is not off the transport ship and in the water in 6 hours, I want my money back and I'm going to sue you. Now,
Ouch.
if it was in Florida, that's one thing. I'd be like, go down to the port, see what I can do. This was in Italy. So there used to be, and there may still be this Facebook type of app, but for zillionaires, right? So it was like you had to get invited in, you had to do what. So I go on the app, and I'm like, can anybody help me?
What's the app?
It was called Small World, a Small World. But it's different now. This is back in the day. I go on Small World, I'm like, I'm in a jam. And sure enough, somebody responds to me. It's like, what port? I say, I'm at such and such, I need such and such port. They're like, look, we got some guys, and they can go in the port. They're connected. Listen, it's Italy, so I don't know who they were. We're connected. We can get your boat off the ship. I was like, with the correct people, like with the proper lift, we can do it. So I call my boss, and he's like, you're insane. Who are these guys? I go, listen, they're on the site. I guarantee you they're the real thing. You have to be the real thing to be on the site. They can get the boat off the ship. I call the client, and I said, look, I can get the boat off the ship before midnight, but I don't know these people. And he's like, listen, 12:01, I want my money back. And I had to just sleep on it. I couldn't make that call. It was too crazy. They could drop the boat. They might be mafia guys. I don't know who they are. They could steal the boat. And he's watching it going across. He goes, the ship's slowing down. I don't think it's going to make it in time. And I finally had to just beg him. And then I went and slept on it. I just went to bed. And I woke up in the morning, and they put the boat in the water the next day. And I was like, what are you going to do? Are you going to start your trip, or are you not going to start your trip? And he had a few harsh words, and then he started his trip. And then he had the time of his life on his trip, all through Italy, all through the Mediterranean and everything else. But, you know, he had an expectation, and he paid good money. You know what I mean? He paid for the experience, and I could not provide the exact experience that he wanted. And one day to him was like 100 years to you or me.
It reminded me of a movie, War Dogs.
Yeah, exactly.
Remember when
yeah.
they paid the guys like
Yes.
sitting under the umbrella to
Dude.
get their Berettas offloaded?
I used to have hair. You know what I mean? Before that, I had a full head of hair. And after dealing with him, I just looked in the mirror one day. I was like, what happened to all my hair? And he took it. You know, he took my hair.
So I had the same thing after working for another company. So.
Dude. But, you know, afterwards, he gave me great business advice. He gave me great business advice. He was a gentleman. Like, but part of boat deals it's a little bit of war. A little bit. It's not us starting the war. It's a little bit of getting shot at and trying to dive down in a foxhole and poke your head up and make sure you don't get shot at again. So these are some big guys. And they're not used to hearing no. They're not hearing no on their house. They're not hearing no on their airplane. They're not hearing no on their car. But a boat is a different animal.
Yeah.
You know, it's just different.
So the outcome is driving the expectations correctly.
If you want peace, you got to tear the Band-Aid off early and listen to the static or the feedback, the negative feedback in the beginning, you know. But oftentimes you haven't closed the deal yet. So it's like, do you want to close this deal or do you not want to close this deal? I always want to close this deal, but I want the person to be happy. And sometimes they are happy, but they torture you anyway. So it's like, oh man. You know, there's nothing like it. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen another purchase in my life like purchasing a boat. I mean, it's like purchasing something so intimate that's going to be a part of your entire family. Not like a dog, more intimate than that. You know, it's adopting a kid or taking on a wife. I mean, I think that's why they call the boat she. You know, it takes you to the limit. You know, but you love it.
Yeah. Nice, cool. Thanks a lot, Jason.
Thanks, brother. Be good.
Yeah.
Okay, man.